It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
I watched much of the Charlie Kirk memorial funeral, and I thought the speeches were fantastic except for one. I think Erica Kirk is a remarkable young lady. Absolutely remarkable. I always want to listen when she speaks. You can tell she's a woman of deep, deep faith. And you can tell she's been for a long, long time. And I want to tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, as an American and as a Jew, I am thrilled with these revivals. I am thrilled with Christians finding their faith and practicing their faith. I am thrilled about it. Thrilled about it. We talk about Judeo-Christian values for a reason. The founders of your country talked about Judeo-Christian values. They embraced them. They talked about the Hebrews. They talked about Jesus. Over in Israel, I rarely go beyond the holy sites, because that's what I love. That's what I enjoy. My family, too. And who's protecting Christian holy sites? From the Islamists, the Palestinian Muslims. Who's protecting them? The Jewish IDF and police. That's who. Who goes into Syria to protect the Christians, among others? We have an envoy, a guy named Tom Barrett, who's a fool, a buffoon. The Israeli Air Force and infantry go into Syria to try and protect the Christians. And yesterday, the Syrians were burning, again, Christian towns. You didn't hear that on any of the networks, did you? You didn't hear it from any news show, did you? Because apparently, to them, it doesn't matter. To them, it doesn't matter. I can't speak for every Jew, but I grew up around Christians. I have friends who are Christians, best friends who are Christians. And we are very close, including Pastor John Hagee, one of the great evangelical Christians of our time or ever, with his megachurch in San Antonio, Texas. He was at the City of David last week as well, as was his family. It was a Jewish Christian celebration, among others, over the beginnings of both faiths, linked in the Bible. And yet there are people who seek to come between us. These aren't people of faith. These are people who try to exploit faith. These are people who don't even comprehend faith. And so now we're back to the old blood libel. The old blood libel, because it comes up by Carlson during what was an absolutely beautiful memorial service for our friend Charlie Kirk. Now, I want to tell you something. I don't know where this is going. I don't know where this Jew hatred from the Marxists, the Islamists, the neo-Nazis, the grifters, I don't know where they're pulling us and pushing us. What do they want to do with American Jews? What do they want to do? Where are they taking this country? They're destroying it. Carlson, Owens, Kelly, Bannon, the rest of them, and others. They're relatively small voices, this is true. But the left-wing media give them platforms, quote them all the time, promote them all the time, because they think they're getting at you and me, red-blooded and patriotic Americans who love this country. And so they want the rest of the world to believe, the rest of our country to believe, that these are MAGA. Donald Trump is the greatest friend of Israel in the Oval Office in the history of that country and this country. Is that where the people I just mentioned stand? Of course not. They stand with Bernie Sanders and Tlaib. That's who they stand with. They stand with the Jew haters and the Marxists and the Islamists. And why aren't more of our elected leaders speaking out against this? With few important exceptions. Why is Carlson being platformed? Being platformed by some of our leaders. What is that all about? Well, I know what it's all about. And so I've decided you and I have been through a lot of important political revolutions and movements. In fact, we started many of them, but not all of them. The Reagan Revolution, the most massive landslide victories in modern history. The Tea Party movement, started by you, with me, Liberty and Tyranny. Our rallies, our millions of people turning out, throwing out the Democrats in the House of Representatives, giving the Republicans an over 60-vote majority. They'd never seen anything like this. You and me. Nominating Cruz and Rubio and Mike Lee and God knows how many others in the House and the Senate who are there right now because of you and me. Mostly you. The Convention of States, under the radar, but millions and millions of us who have turned legislature after legislature around in support of resolutions to save this country financially and otherwise through Convention of States. In my book, The Liberty Amendments, I've counted. I've sold 15 million books over the course of my career. It's stunning because of you. And MAGA. We've got this little clan, and by clan I mean clan, who claim credit for 77 million plus votes for Donald Trump. Podcasters. Some of whom hated Donald Trump, despised Donald Trump, brutalized Donald Trump, used the most foul words against Donald Trump in texts, in speeches. Now they say they're Make America Great Again. I'm going to tell you this. There's only one Donald Trump. And there will only be one Donald Trump in our lifetimes. He is a great, great man. He is a great leader. What he did at the United Nations today was unbelievable, and I'm going to get into that. Absolutely stellar. I've never seen anything like it before. And guts. The man has courage like you can't imagine. Like you can't imagine. But after Donald Trump, all bets are off. Some people think they have the inside lane to the presidency. Well, you know what? We constitutional conservatives don't believe in coronations, do we? You got to fight for it. And your associations matter. And your past statements matter. And whether or not you're a leader or a statesman matters. And it's going to be bruising. Because some of these dumb bastards like Carlson, they've awakened. They've awakened a sleeping giant. People of faith want nothing to do with Holocaust deniers. People of faith want nothing to do with out-of-the-closet, full-throated Jew haters. People of faith want nothing to do with individuals who try to steal their faith, Christianity, and use it to advance the causes of the Islamists, use it to advance anti-Americanism, use it to attack the greatest generation and the victories in World War II. We're not putting up with this. We're not tolerating this. None of us. You don't trash Christians and Jews and American soldiers on the battlefield in World War II. You don't make excuses for Hitler and smear Churchill. You don't platform Holocaust deniers and sympathize with Qatar and Iran and Putin and think that you represent the people of the United States. Hell, that's not Trump. That's not Reagan. That's sick. That is sick. Charlie Kirk was a great young man. You see a lot of people talking about Charlie Kirk. I probably knew him better than most because he came to me before there was this big Turning Point USA. And I've used this platform to promote a lot of young conservatives, including Ben Shapiro. Dan Bongino, not as young as the others, same thing. And I can go through a long list because that's what I do. That's what I believe. When I see smart people, when I see motivated people who can help save the country, who write, who think, who speak well, I support them. I'm not jealous. I don't tear them down. I don't look to sabotage their careers. I look to help them because that's what I do. Because one day I won't be here either. All of us are going somewhere at some point, right? But I'll be damned if after fighting in the Reagan Revolution, in the Tea Party movement, I'll be damned if they're fighting for the Constitution and Convention of States. I'll be damned if you and me fighting for Donald Trump's election fiercely, if I'm going to surrender the future of this country to neo-Nazis, to Marxists, to Islamists, to Jew haters, to Christian haters, to American haters, whether they're dressed up on the right or the left, whether they're wearing a kippah or a suit, it doesn't much matter to me. And they are going to feel our wrath. It's just a matter of time. Because they've pissed off red-blooded Americans who love their country, love their faiths, and love their fellow Americans.
Mark Levin.
Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
The Democrat Party was born of violence. It has a violent history. And it is a violent entity today. It not only promotes violence with its propaganda, with its scare tactics, with its fear-mongering, and it does so for power. But it invites the most violent elements into its ranks. Violent felons, they insist, many of whom are still in prison, should be able to vote. Open borders without limitation. We saw that for 4 years. Without limitation. Invites violence, drug cartels, terrorists, criminals. And they not only don't care, that's their policy. Marxism is the most violent political ideology in the history of mankind. But it embraces it. Islamism is the most violent, fundamentalist, religious viewpoint, but they embrace them. You have mayors and city council members, Democrats, who run on attacking the cops, who run on attacking federal law enforcement, ICE, the Border Patrol, backed by Biden and the Democrats. They use the same propaganda that was used in the 1920s and 30s by fascistic regimes. I've been warning and warning and warning about this. I've done Fox shows on this, Blaze shows on this, radio shows on this. Law and order. Their idea of law and order? George Soros prosecutors who don't prosecute. To eliminate misdemeanors, Mondami says, and he's leading by double digits. The Jew hatred on our colleges and university campuses, in the streets. And by the way, they're not the only ones. Those who trash Trump and Reagan and conservatism are no better. They're going to get people killed too. When the Jews are responsible for everything and anything, they're going to get people killed too. But you see, for we conservatives and Republicans, that cabal is the exception. For the Democrats, it's the rule. The targeting of Supreme Court nominees like Kavanaugh, like Clarence Thomas, the targeting of Supreme Court justices like Sam Alito and Thomas again. Two assassination attempts against Donald Trump. Did that lower their rhetoric? Not for a second. For them, it's still Hitler, dictator, fascist, authoritarian. We'll never get our democracy back. They don't even believe in democracy. Everything he does, they say, will destroy the country. And they're aided by lifetime appointed judges. They're aided by lifetime apparently appointed comics, phony journalists. Antifa, they tell us, is an idea. It's an idea. It's an idea that riots, commits arson, that beats people to a pulp. Seems to me that's more than an idea. They come to the defense of people who preach the overthrow of the United States, revolution against the United States. Khalil as a perfect example. CARE, a Hamas front group, is aligned with the Democrat Party. Students for Justice in Palestine, another Hamas front group aligned with Palestine, with the Democrats. Look at their papers. The New York Times covering up the Holocaust. The New York Times promoting phony photos about genocide in the Middle East and using Hamas numbers. CNN, same thing. Side with the terrorists. Side with the Islamists. Side with the Marxists. Side with the open borders. Side with the anti-cops. Anti-law and order, trash the Constitution, trash the civil society, trash the founding of the greatest country on the face of the earth. You don't find that in the Republican Party. It's one party. The hate is ubiquitous. That doesn't mean there aren't some nut jobs who aren't Democrats, maybe Republicans, maybe nothing. The problem is this systemic issue within the Democrat Party. It was built on violence, and it promotes violence. They can talk about guns all they want. Let me remind you, guns won World War II. Guns stopped Hitler. Guns stopped Tojo. Guns stopped Mussolini. It depends who has the trigger. Their finger on the trigger. Local law enforcement, they have trashed and trashed and trashed again. Federal law enforcement, now it's ICE. ICE that dares to enforce the law. ICE's job is to comply with the immigration laws, to deport people who are here illegally. The problem for the Democrats is they brought these people in here illegally. They want them to be Democrats. They want them to affect the election results. They want them to affect the gerrymandering and how many seats they have in the House. I wrote the whole book on it, On Power. This is what it's all about. All about. Not democracy or republicanism, not the Constitution or the Declaration. You have a Democrat in the Senate from Virginia, for God's sakes. Tim Kaine. Your rights come from government. And if you think they come from God, then you're like an Islamist? Your rights come from God. Your earthly laws come from man. You dumb bastard. You don't even understand anything. But there's the dumb and then there's the purposeful. There's the Bernie Sanders. There's the Tlaib. There's Omar. We've not only imported the enemy, they're homegrown. Revolution is taught in our colleges and universities. You and me, we're paying for this. We're paying for this. And so there's another attack on another detention center. Two weeks after the assassination, the political, horrendous assassination of Charlie Kirk. After two attempted assassinations on the President of the United States. After United Healthcare's CEO was shot in the back and murdered, and a GoFundMe page is organized. T-shirts. And I don't think the Democrats are going to change one whit. They embrace an ideology that is not popular with the American people. And so they have to attack, they have to trash, they have to use language that is beyond provocative. The Democrat Party has become, quote unquote, the Democratic Socialist Party. I told you this before. It's not their base. It's the party. And if you disagree, you better get the hell out as fast as you can. They talk about lawfare, Donald Trump trying to even the score. Isn't that funny? Even what score, Mr. Producer? So there's a score to even? They don't even understand what they're saying. Retribution. Retribution for what? For trying to destroy him and put him in prison. In one jurisdiction after another. They destroyed our Department of Justice. They destroyed our FBI. They destroyed our justice system. How dare you indict James Comey, who lied before Congress? That's the allegation. How dare you? How dare you use the same tools and mechanisms that have been used against Trump and others, and they'll use them again. But if, in fact, Comey lied before Congress. Isn't that a crime? And if, in fact, Letitia James lied about her mortgages, isn't that a crime? And if, in fact, Adam Schiff lied about his primary home, isn't that a crime? It's not retribution. They seek immunity. I've got more to say. And I will say this. I'm proud of the vice president for what he said today and the way he said it. That the language incites violence. I would encourage him to tell his friend Tucker Carlson the same thing. The language incites violence. That said, to act like it's both parties is ridiculous, is absurd, because it's not. That doesn't mean there's not a kook who's a Republican. Of course. That's different than having a party that is founded on violence, that has lived on violence, that opens the border to violence, that undermines the cops to violence, that installs radicals as prosecutors who have a blind eye to violence. That's a different situation altogether.
Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
When you keep talking about ICE agents and you use... See, again, the book on power, if you read the language chapter, what do? I don't even know if it's true. If some 15-year-old girl was in a wheelchair and collected as an illegal alien. But let's say it is true. This is what people like Newsom do. They take that and exploit it. If she was put in handcuffs. He doesn't mention how many hundreds, if not thousands, of criminal aliens have been deported. Does he? How many thousands of criminal aliens have been imprisoned, murderers and rapists, as a result of this? One handicapped person. That's what he's got. That's what he's got. And so, that's what he exploits. Wearing masks. We know why they're wearing masks. To protect themselves and their families. It's not a state secret. But he acts like they're doing it because they're part of the SS or some other horrendous entity. And they should show their ID. Read the immigration laws. They're not required to show their ID. Obviously, they're dressed in appropriate garb. Often, they have the initials of the agency they're from on their garb. Excuse me. They don't take taxis. They're not taking Cadillacs and sedans. They're not dropped off by chauffeurs. They're coming in special vehicles that are marked. And yet he creates this image that is intended to create an image of Nazis or the Stalin Red Army or some third world dictator like in Cuba or Venezuela. It's outrageous. And he did that. He did it the night before the shooting by another young man who then killed himself. And I want to make it abundantly clear. The problem is not just what the Democrats are saying and doing. I've said it before. I've said it earlier than most. It's the internet. It's these so-called private rooms or private boards where there's no intervention, where they work each other up into a lather, where they become radicalized on the internet. On the internet. Nobody even talks about it. Nobody even talks about it. I told you before, just look at the comments when I post anything now about Jew this, Jew this, Jew this, and Jew this. And I'm telling you the truth. We have now people who are rightly calling out the Democrats, but they are not rightly calling out the Jew haters, the Islamists, the radical, bigoted isolationists. They don't call them out. Do you hear them call them out, Mr. Producer? I haven't heard a single government official call them out. Tell them to cut it out. I'm telling them to cut it out. But I'm not a government official. Just incredible. This whole thing about Jimmy Kimmel, I've been on top of this when I got back. I've explained it to you. It's not a free speech issue. He's a fraud and a phone. He's a nasty punk. It's what he is. It's what he is. Hollywood rallies around him. The left rallies around him. This guy Iger, radical Democrat, who's destroyed Disney, who's destroyed their brand. They can't even get people into their parks. They've overcharged the average American. He took Walt Disney's dream and he's destroyed it. And he intercedes and they bring him back. Doesn't apologize for what he said. MAGA had nothing to do with, or Charlie Kirk's TPUSA supporters had nothing to do with his assassination. What kind of bullcrap is that? He's no First Amendment leader. He's a selfish pig. That's what he is. A private company has every right to fire somebody like that. Certainly not a First Amendment issue. This guy, this chairman of the FCC, he didn't do anything. And people try to make their cred and want to be even patted on the back by the left because they criticized him. Really? You know what Woodrow Wilson did with the government and free speech? You know what Franklin Roosevelt did? You know what Kennedy did? Johnson did? Read my other book, On Freedom of the Press. 10 others. But read that one. FCC chairman can't do anything without 2 other votes. There was no government intervention. There was no First Amendment violation. This isn't a free speech issue. If you're a schmuck that says intentionally, planned, strategized, provocative statements about a political assassination, you took the risk and you lost. But now he's back. He should be gone. If you truly believe in free speech, you've got to believe in the consequences of the private sector, the market system. If this is the kind of person you're going to push out front. Nothing wrong with firing him. Nothing. In fact, it was a good thing. These guys think they have a lifetime job. You don't. You don't in my business, broadcasting. So why does he? We discuss things here that I hear on other radio shows now, on other cable shows, and it's a good thing they're paying attention. Really good thing. That they paid attention to my discussion with Bill O'Reilly last night, where we both brought up the fact that how come we're not on ABC? No, I don't want to be on ABC. That's not even my point. I am fine where I am. But is that a violation of free speech? That you don't have any conservatives really on there? Conservative comics? Conservative women instead of just The View? Is that suppression of speech? No, it's not. It's a damnable abomination, but it's not a suppression of speech. People don't even know what they're talking about. This guy, this Kimmel, he's Rosa Parks all of a sudden. He's Mahatma Gandhi. He's nothing. He didn't even apologize. Unbelievable. Well, Ted Cruz at a press conference this morning regarding the ICE shooting. Cut 2, go.
This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong. It was 2 weeks ago today that we saw a political assassination in Utah that tore the heart out of much of this country. This is the third shooting in Texas directed at ICE or CBP. This must stop. To every politician who is using rhetoric demonizing ICE and demonizing CBP, stop. To every politician demanding that ICE agents be doxxed and calling for people to go after their families, stop. This has very real consequences. Look, in America, we disagree. That's fine. That's the democratic process. But your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to learn to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of law enforcement. I want to say thank you to the brave men and women of ICE and CBP and everyone who puts their lives on the line to keep us safe. The divisive rhetoric tragically has real consequences.
They don't want to debate the facts. They don't want to debate the substance. They don't want to debate the policies. When these issues come up, they lie and they lie and they lie again. About how the Republicans want to take your health care away, how they want to take your Social Security away, how they want to take your Medicare away, as if no Republicans are on Social Security, Medicare, or health care. It's insane. And this is what they do. This is what they do. And it's not going to stop. In fact, since the assassination attempt on the president when he was first shot in the head in the ear, it's gotten worse. The second one's gotten even worse. Charlie Kirk's murdered. They didn't miss a beat. This guy, Newsom, he's on Colbert's show, and there he is, stoking the flames. By the time you're done and you're a whack job, you're saying, yeah, ICE is the enemy. We got to take him out. Yeah, Trump's the enemy. Got to take Hitler out. Yeah, of course. Of course.
Mark Levin. The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Sorry, Megan, you're no Charlie. Try as you might. You're just not. But that for another day. I'm working on something. Before we get to that, our friends at Gravian put together a montage of Democrats trashing ICE. And you say words do have consequences, except if you're Jimmy Kimmel. But for most people, they do. You're going to hear from Dan Goldman, who is a complete sleazeball lowlife. Gavin Newsom, a complete sleazeball lowlife. J.B. Pritzker, sleazeball lowlife. Hakeem Jeffries, sleazeball lowlife. Tim Walz, sleazeball lowlife. And then the FBI special agent in charge, who's having to deal with the aftermath here of that shooting in Dallas. And I guarantee these Democrats are not going to change. The Democrats, the party of slavery and segregation, the party of eugenics and Jim Crow, the party of Marxism and Islamism, that's right, the party of the Klan, the party of lynching. It's a very violent party. Very violent party. The one thing they can agree on is they hate the United States of America. Let's take a listen. Cut 10, go.
This is Gestapo-like behavior. Plainclothes officers wearing masks are terrorizing immigrants.
The ICE issue is alarming beyond words. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process. We're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here. Wake up. Dangers.
Hold on. Have you noticed something about Border Patrol agents and ICE agents, ladies and gentlemen? Not all, of course, but vast numbers of them are brown. Vast numbers of them are bilingual. Vast numbers of them are Hispanic. Have you noticed that? They come on TV and they speak about the need for law enforcement, the need for deporting illegal aliens and criminals and so forth. Have you noticed that? And yet here we have this white guy with all this grease in his hair, with a turkey neck, going on and on. Can't even provide water to the people of California. Can't even ensure that these homes will be rebuilt. Him, that guy. Go ahead.
In Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. They're taking people off the streets and sending them away. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identities from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that. This is not the 1930s, and every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
Donald Trump's modern day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye. Just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. We need to make sure that there's a firewall that they have to come through before they get to them.
Early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack.
And so you can see, ladies and gentlemen, and I write about this in Chapter 4 of On Power. This is called Agitprop. Lenin wrote about it in 1902. Remember Lenin? Led the revolution, the Russian Revolution in 1917. They took over the country. Remember him? Yeah, Putin was part of the KGB. The Putinoids with their hemorrhoids, they still love all this. But nonetheless, the rest of us, normal Americans. Agitprop is the combination of agitating physical action with propaganda. Agitprop. They actually had a significant department after the Russian Revolution in Russia to promote agitprop, the manipulation of people, the manipulation of their minds, thought control, to create anger, fury, in order to control what the people do and don't do. That's exactly what's going on here. I call them American Marxists, as you know, for a reason. And this is what they are. They're not Marxists per se, they're American Marxists, a customized form. I wrote an entire book on this, but that's who they are. That's what they are. Now, when you talk like this, you intend to be heard. Right, Mr. Producer? They have these press conferences or they go on these talk shows. They're saying these things because they want to be heard, right? They're not saying these things because they don't want to be heard. They're saying these things because they want to have an impact. They want to be heard. They want to have an impact on as many people as possible. And they have. The violence is everywhere. The open borders, the violence is everywhere. They're having their impact. So I want to give them credit for their impact. Right? But they don't want to take any credit. They fall back on guns. They light the fuse. They push the agenda. And then when somebody is shot and murdered, they talk about guns. You know, it's interesting about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Many things, of course, are appalling, but I didn't hear them talk much about gun control. Did you, Rich? No. I didn't hear them talk much at all, except for the likes of Jimmy Kimmel, who's now a free speech icon because he burped out of his ass a stupid comment. Now he's a free speech icon. I'm going to address this Saturday. I've been working on this. I'm going to address this Saturday in a way nobody else has on Life, Liberty, and Levin. Please don't miss it. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Set your DVR. We have Brandon Tatum, wonderful guy who doesn't get enough TV time, which is the way I felt about Charlie Kirk when I brought him on Fox. Nobody was bringing him on Fox. I brought him on Fox. And thank goodness I did. I'm for the better. The whole country's for the better as a result. And I don't think Tatum gets enough time. And I also bring on Douglas Murray, who is fantastic. He doesn't get enough time either. But they will now. I'll make sure of it. And there's going to be others. I'm telling you now. There's other individuals who are not given the spotlight that they deserve. It's the same old, same old. I've had it. I've used my radio program to help create a farm team. And I use my Fox program to help create a farm team. I'm going to expand this. I'm going to expand it. America's governor, and he is. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. And he doesn't hang around with neo-Nazis and grifters and isolations. And that would be Ron DeSantis. He was at an event today about these attacks on ICE and other law enforcement. Here's what he said. Cut 11, go.
We are very clear. We are seeing an alarming increase in attacks and rhetoric against law enforcement, in this case, federal law enforcement, Department of Homeland Security, and ICE. In Florida, we have zero tolerance for attacks on law enforcement. This is not Portland. You will be held accountable if you try that. These are folks that are doing their jobs. They have been given duties to be able to enforce the laws that are on the books in this country, and they are doing that. And I know there's a lot of politicians out there that are trying to gin up hatred and opposition for what they're doing. That is not going to fly in the state of Florida. So we stand with, of course, our local and state law enforcement, but yes, our federal partners who are working very hard to uphold the rule of law. And we saw a shooting yesterday in Texas. And we see an alarming rise in rhetoric and actions targeting these folks. And so in Florida, we have zero tolerance. You're not going to want to try that here in the Sunshine State.
You know, somebody who's a resident of Florida, I love this guy. What he does is unequivocally solid, pro-American, conservative, fiscally, law enforcement. Why? It doesn't matter. He was a great congressman. He'd make a great president. Ron DeSantis. He also debated, you might recall, Newsom and mopped the floor with him. There's a lot of potential, really solid candidates for president, and they're going to have to earn it. And they're going to have to answer questions. If they won't come on this program, not because of my ego, because there's millions and millions of you, we will oppose them. President Trump came on this program. He's come on this program many times. Don't be afraid.
Mark Levin. We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
Remember I told you this guy, Chris Murphy, he looks like he just woke up and left his crypt. This guy doesn't have to pretend he's a ghost on Halloween. He's a ghost on every day. But that's not really the issue. The issue is he is a slime ball extraordinaire. This guy from Connecticut, the Nutmeg State. How proud are you of that? He's on the Morning Schmo Show. He's one of the most vile. Much of what he says, some of the worst things. He's a real sleazeball. You should ask his wife, or is it his ex-wife now? Cut 12, go.
Listen, it should not matter whether the radicalization comes from the right or the left or, sort of the non-ideological.
Well, why wouldn't that matter? The language you're using, a-hole, and that your party is using, and that you've always used since the slavery period, the segregation period, the eugenics period. Yeah. The modern segregation period. And now, you people are inciting exactly what you want to incite. Your little militias that grow out, whether it was 2020 or whether it's now. You've got Soros and others who fund these things. That's why the president's looking into it, because these are revolutionary acts. These are violent revolutionary acts. Marxism is the most violent political ideology man has ever constructed. Ever. Go ahead.
Dark recesses of the internet. This vice president, has had a chance now since the assassination of Charlie Kirk to bring the country together to try to stamp out all sorts of
Bring the country together. You don't want the country to be brought together, you jackass. You Democrats are now insisting you're going to shut down the government. You're trying to blame everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy and that party wants to spend $1.5 trillion more dollars. Interest on the debt is through the roof. It's bigger than the defense budget. They spent like wild Marxists, like drunken Marxists, when they controlled both chambers under Biden. They lied to you about the Inflation Reduction Act that created inflation because it had nothing to do with reducing inflation. They feathered their own nests. They lined their own pockets and those of their friends. They were sending money for every nonsensical cause imaginable in our country and outside our country. They opened our borders. I could go on and on and on. But we won't come together with them. They back Mondami, a Marxist, Islamist, Jew hater for mayor of New York. They got another one running in Minneapolis. Oh, yeah. You and I, we should get together with these people, don't you see? They try to destroy our president. They try to destroy members of his cabinet. Yeah, we need to get and unite with these people. They mocked the death of Charlie Kirk, assassinated. What's to get together with? I don't get it. They're trying to destroy our country. I don't know. I'm not into that. I don't want to get together for that. Go ahead.
Political violence, and they refuse to do that. What they are trying to do is exploit these murders and these shootings in order to
You and I are trying to exploit the murders and shootings, folks, don't you know? We're trying to confront it, address it, deal with it. And he says we're trying to exploit. Where is he? He's on the Morning Schmo show. You know, Schmo, you should know better than this. To let this piece of garbage, this bleeding hemorrhoid on your program. You should know better than this. Go ahead.
Only dissent and political opposition on the left. No, criticizing the way that ICE is rounding up people in this country in a deeply inhumane...
Well, how else do you round up people who are here illegally, and many of whom are violent criminals? How else do you do it? How did Eisenhower do it? Exactly the same way. Same way. How have other presidents done it? Exactly the same way. I wish they would show a little bit more compassion for their victims, American citizens, a little bit more compassion for Americans who are losing jobs to these people, a little more compassion for some of these people who have been sold into sex slavery, a little more compassion for the unaccompanied minors who are missing, all 300,000. They come on these programs with their cold-blooded bullcrap. Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Sick. Absolutely sick. Here's the former ICE director, acting ICE director under Barack Milhouse Benito Obama, who helped unleash so much of this crazy-ass crap that's going on in this country. John Sandweg. Cut 14, go.
Unfortunately, ICE has become a symbol of the Trump administration. As a result of that, it's a target for violent extremists, and we need to do a quick assessment of what does that mean in terms of officer safety and the safety of the detainees who are in ISIS care and custody.
Isn't it funny how the men and women of ISIS love Donald Trump? They despised Biden and Obama. Isn't it amazing? That most, not all, but most of the individuals in ICE are brown people, to quote Newsom. Hispanic people, most of the people on the Border Patrol are brown people, Hispanic people, bilingual, because that's required, that's needed. Isn't that amazing? Not all, but most of those attacking ICE and the Border Patrol agents are lily white. We ought to have a new category for them. Translucent. Ooh. Oh, yes. Like Chris Murphy. That guy looks like death walking. That guy is a freak show. A freak show in a suit. And Tom Homan says over and over again what we all know. This is the law. ICE is enforcing the law. So the open borders was one of the greatest lawless acts of a president in American history. And now the Democrat Party, having imported what they hoped would be more Democrats, having imported individuals so they can get more congressional seats, having imported what they hope will be birthright citizenship babies, they're trying to protect their lawlessness with more lawlessness. And with rhetoric that is intended, listen, to gaslight violence. That's the intention. Whether it's the Marxists in the street, the Islamists in the street, or others attacking ICE. They're all in. They were all in the 1960s and early 70s with the New Left movement. Students for Democratic Action. The Weather Underground. Now it's Students for Justice in Palestine. Well, then go back to Palestine and work out your justice issues. It's a hellhole because of the people who run it. Oh, yeah. Tom Homan today on Fox. Cut 15, go.
This is based on hate. Hate that's being fueled by the media and members of Congress and governors and mayors. You played it on your show. We got to stop. ICE agents are enforcing the law Congress enacted. If you don't like what ICE is doing, then go tell Congress, because they wrote the laws that ICE is obligated and took an oath to enforce. They're making this country safe again. Every day they take a public safety threat.
But not safe from Democrats. Not safe from the Democrat militia. Not safe from George Soros and the other dark money billionaires pouring money into these violent groups. No. It's funny how the Democrats don't want to know from any of them. Who are the billionaires? The billionaires. How about their billionaires? How about Soros? Bernie the Red. How about it? You want to investigate George and Alex? Go ahead.
It makes that community safer. All these politicians and mayors and governors should be calling President Trump and thanking them for making their community safe again.
No, they're never going to thank them for making the community safe again, because you understand. They apparently don't want safe communities because there's a lot they could do about it, even without President Trump. The only reason President Trump is trying to intervene is because they won't take the steps needed. They don't provide the budget needed. They don't provide the training needed. They don't provide the backup of law enforcement that's needed. They don't support real prosecutors rather than Soros prosecutors, real judges rather than activist lawyers dressed up as judges. This is what they've created. This is what they want. That's why they resist Donald Trump. Yeah, that's why they resist Donald Trump. Look at California. Look at Newsom. He's taken the greatest state in the country, the most beautiful state with the best weather, more resources, the biggest economy, and he's destroyed it. He destroyed it. Newsom destroyed California. Despite everything I just told you, people are trying to get the hell out of there. Or people are 2, 3, 4 generations say they don't want to leave. It's my home. It's my property. I get it. This guy can't even make water run into water hydrants. Can't even do that. But he's got all kinds of great ideas, don't you know? The only ideas he has that work are to create a monopoly party, a one-party system in California. That's what they have. Supermajority Democrats in the Assembly, supermajority Democrats in the Senate. If you get under 60, 65% of a vote and you're a Democrat candidate for governor, you're a loser. Because they've so thoroughly changed the demographics and the population of California. That's why Pelosi, that's why all the Democrats did what they did with the open border. It worked in California, and they want to do it with the rest of the country. It's that simple. That's it. Case closed. So when Donald Trump's in office and he wants to literally enforce the law, which, of course, is what dictators do, you know. They want to enforce the law. Then they attack him. They attack ICE. They attack the Border Patrol. Now, what should be abundantly clear now is simple. James Comey, former FBI director, was indicted on 2 counts, one involving a false statement and another involving obstruction, dealing with testimony the news is reporting. We don't have it in front of us. Almost 5 years ago to the day, which is why they would pull the trigger now, so they wouldn't lose it on the statute of limitations. The testimony he gave in response to Ted Cruz's question about whether he leaked to the media, he said he stuck by his prior answer, which was no. The problem is, Strzok, I think it is, I'm doing it by memory, had testified that he had spoken to the media. If it's not Strzok, I believe it was somebody else then. You know, and people are saying, well, this is hard to prove. That's not hard to prove. It'd be hard to get a jury to find it guilty, but it's not hard to prove. And this is the sort of stuff the Trump people went through, this sort of stuff that the Democrats were constantly looking for in the Meritless Garland Department of Justice and their U.S. attorneys, all particularly in the D.C. area. So this is what people believe. Now remember, this was the politicization of law enforcement. This was the Russia collusion lie that was used to try and destroy the Trump campaign and then the Trump presidency in the first term. And this is what Republicans were asking about at the time in 2020. Now, we have the audio of the question and the answer from almost 5 years ago, which appears to be center stage in this indictment. Go.
Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave. I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
I believe the issue there was that he, with a wink and a nod or more, knew and encouraged McCabe to do something of that sort. Now, if that's the case, why is that a hard-to-prove case, Mr. Producer? He said, no. No. He didn't mealy-mouth it. That's what he said. No. Now, we'll know soon enough when we get the documents in front of us, and we are trying. Once they're made publicly available, we will have them. And you're in the right place at the right time. So people are doing a lot of speculation. I thought it was interesting. One of the main media outlets immediately said Comey indicted after Trump issued text demanding his indictment. That's not why he was indicted. You have a statute of limitations that is about to run. And then I heard another person say that there was a memo, a declination meaning declining, memo written by career prosecutors. Well, who cares what the career prosecutors write? Now, this is amazing to me. We've been through what they did to Trump in multiple jurisdictions, local, state, and federal. You didn't hear about declinations and anything of the sort back then, did you? There was no inference that when Joe Biden said, as an example, out loud, I believe it was a New York Times interview, don't hold me to it, but that's my recollection, that the problem with the Attorney General is he conducts himself like a ponderous judge, meaning get on with it. Or the meetings that Fannie's boyfriend had at the White House twice with White House counsel. We still haven't gotten to the bottom of that. And I can go on and on and on. Nobody found any problems with that. We will see. Time will tell. And they're going to try and convince you, the media, that this is a nothing case. The legal analysts will try and convince you. The rhino lawyers are coming out of the woodwork now, along with the Democrat lawyers, the never-Trumpers. So their views will be very skewed. Mine will not be. I will know. I'll look at it. I've seen this stuff 1,000 times. It would make sense if this is the situation. And as I talk to you, we're continuing to look for the actual charge documents. And but Comey was a slimeball the whole way through, trying to set up Donald Trump. He's not a sympathetic figure. He's not a victim. Quite the contrary. He's a perpetrator. Let's see here. Let's see if there's more to this. This is ABC News headline. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted days after Trump demanded his DOJ take action. Move now to prosecute his enemies. That's how ABC News, without even having the documents. That's how ABC News reports it. You know, the Jimmy Kimmel Network. Comey indicted for alleged false statement, obstruction of justice. That's the Fox News. And they reference the September 2020 testimony about his handling of the original Trump-Russia probe at the FBI, known inside the Bureau's Crossfire Hurricane. Bondi put out a statement on X, nobody's above the law. Today's indictment reflects the department's commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American people. Look how they did the search warrant on John Bolton's home and office. Look what they found. They found classified information. Remember how that was being trashed, Mr. Producer? Oh, that's bogus, we were told. That's nonsense. Kash Patel. For far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers weaponized federal law enforcement, damaging once proud institutions, severely eroding public trust. Every day we continue the fight. Turn the trust back, and under my leadership, the FBI will confront the problem head on. Nowhere was this politicization of law enforcement more blatant than during the Russiagate hoax, a disgraceful chapter in history we continue to investigate and expose. Everyone, especially those in positions of power, will be held to account, no matter their perch. Fox News Digital also exclusively reported former CIA Director John Brennan is under criminal investigation related to the Trump-Russia probe. See, we have the documents now, the DNA, the fingerprints, the evidence that this whole Russia probe thing, which I broke first. That's the irony here. I'm the one who broke it first. I think it was March 2nd, 2017. Right here, behind this microphone, in this place. But now we have the documents. Now we have these sleazeball activities that took place. They tried to bring down a president. They tried to bring down his campaign first in 2016. Then they tried to bring down his presidency with a lie. They conducted a criminal investigation. This country's never experienced anything like this before. And the man who was at the center of it was James Comey. Over at the FBI and Brennan over at the CIA, and Obama was the tip of the spear. Oh, yes. It's unbelievable, really. Former special counsel Robert Mueller was appointed to take over the FBI's original crossfire investigation. Remember all that went on all those years? John Durham was appointed as special counsel to investigate the origins of this crossfire probe. He found the FBI failed to act on a clear warning sign that the Bureau was the target of a Clinton-led effort to I'm quoting, manipulate or influence the law enforcement process for political purposes ahead of the 2016 presidential election. That's what Durham found. Now the people who were doing that are being held to account. How's that retaliation? It's called justice. Justice. The Durham report said, indeed, had the FBI opened the Crossfire Hurricane investigation as an assessment and in turn gathered and analyzed data in concert with the information from the Clinton plan intelligence, it's likely the information received would have been examined at a minimum with a more critical eye. He said the FBI failed to act on what should have been, when combined with other incontrovertible facts, a clear warning sign to the... But they didn't want to. The FBI was involved. That's the point. And when they questioned Comey and said, have you leaked? No. Did you leak in the Clinton investigation, Hillary? No. And apparently McCabe said, yeah, we did. And we know McCabe did. Well, they got a little problem.